In Christ's second coming, our bodies will be raised from the dead and rejoin our souls in heaven if we accept and cooperate with the grace of God. Upon that happening, our bodies will return to us in a perfected state. St. Thomas Aquinas theorized that our bodies would reach us at around age 33, which could be considered the prime of our physical lifespans, where we wouldn't have the physical flaws of our youth or the decay of old age. That raises an interesting question. If our souls will one day rejoin our bodies in a perfected state in heaven, why bother taking care of our bodies now during our time on earth? Why pay attention to what we eat? Why make a point of exercising regularly? Because if we don't, we might very well put a barrier between ourselves and the sanctifying grace of God. Yet, if we do take care of our bodies here on earth, then we can grow in sanctifying grace with God, become more holy, and ultimately become closer with Him. In this video, I'm going to do my best to elaborate on that and explain why it's so important to take care of your body. To start things off, let's define sanctifying grace. Sanctifying grace, as I can best understand it, is kind of like the direct connection we have the potential to have with God. Growing in sanctifying grace is a means of also growing in holiness. And the more holy we can become, the closer we can get to God. It doesn't get more important than that. So how can we grow it? By accepting and cooperating with the graces that God gives us. I need to clarify in that a grace is a bit different than sanctifying grace. An example of a grace would be faith. God gives us the grace of faith. To grow in sanctifying grace would mean cooperating with the faith that God gives us by doing things like receiving the sacraments regularly, having a structured prayer routine, or showing charity to those who are around you. I kind of think of grace as a sort of foundation and sanctifying grace as the structure we have the potential to build on top of that foundation. The more we act in cooperation with the graces that God gives us and grow our sanctifying grace, the larger and more impressive the structure on top of the foundation will be. Okay, now let's consider the physical human body. It's a creation of God and half of a human, the other half being the soul. As a creation of God, the physical human body is good and something that we ought to take good care of. This is when the question might come up. But why does it matter if we take care of our bodies now, if by the time of Christ's second coming, our bodies will be rejoined with our souls in a state of perfection? Does it really matter what the state of our body is in while on earth? Yes, absolutely it does. Here's a question for you. What causes the body to gain unwanted body fat, to develop health issues, or to experience physical pain or mobility issues that could be the byproduct of having a lack of muscle and strength? Usually, it stems from practicing poor eating habits and neglecting to exercise. Don't get me wrong, tasty foods have their place, and so does relaxation and time away from exercise. The problem is when those things are done outside of moderation. As Catholics, we want to be close with God, right? Right. In that regard, the problem with practicing poor eating and exercise habits that lead the body to decay in health over time is that, in doing so, our own disordered desires take center stage, which means instead of setting our will on God first, we put our own desires ahead of that, above God. And that moves us away from Him, not closer. Okay, believe me, I know that's saying a lot. If I heard someone say all that before my Catholic reversion, I probably would have just done a major eye roll. But bear with me here. Eating an excess of calories from food, whether that be from super tasty foods like ice cream, chips, cookies, cake, burgers and fries, and other junk foods, or from even overeating the nutrient-dense, unprocessed whole foods, acts as a barrier that stands between us and the grace that God gives us. God gives us the grace of temperance or self-control to keep us from the excessive consumption of calories so that we can maintain the health and strength of our bodies. Cooperating with that grace could be considered an act of charity towards God, since we would be taking care of the bodies that God has given us. And by rejecting to do that, we kind of put a block between us and Him. That's one of the characteristics of gluttony. Of course, in allowing the excessive consumption of calories, the body will deteriorate in the process through gaining unwanted body fat and developing health issues along the way. That's the physical manifestation of gluttony. Now, think about this. If your body deteriorates through the gaining of excess amounts of body fat or the development of health problems, you'll start to lose your potential to show up physically at your best for the people who are closest to you, like your spouse or your kids or your parents. You'll be held back at least to some degree from acting in charity by your physical body. On the flip side, if you do implement some temperance to uphold good eating habits and maintain the good health and strength of your body, you'll have the potential to act in charity at your best for the people around you. And of course, in doing so, you'll be cooperating with the sanctifying grace that God gives you, grow in holiness, and potentially grow closer to God. Now, what about neglecting exercise? Well, like eating excess calories, it's not a good thing either, particularly when done as a means of being lazy or doing a little bit more relaxing than you need to be doing. Don't get me wrong, I know exercise is often pretty tough. It involves physically exerting yourself and experiencing, at least to some degree, some physical and mental discomfort. And yes, some relaxation time is definitely 100% warranted. Even Christ took time to relax. That all being so, God gives us the graces of willpower and discipline to enable us to do it at appropriate amounts, despite the difficulty of it. If we reject that grace, however, we might not only fail to maintain the strength and health of our body, but also the opportunity to grow in virtue as well. This is also something that would hold us back from growing in sanctifying grace, and is probably something that would be associated with the sin of sloth. And again, just like the consumption of excess calories would lead to the deterioration of the health of the human body, so would a lack of exercise. Exercise leads to the development of muscle, strength, mobility, and cardiovascular health, amongst other things. With a lack of development in those areas, there can be unwanted fat gain, mobility issues, an increased rate of injuries and pains, and so on. With those kind of physical ailments, your ability to, again, act in charity to those around you would be impaired. But if we accept and cooperate with the graces God gives us and exercise regularly to maintain the health and strength of our bodies, then we can show up physically at our fullest and most capable for those around us and grow in sanctifying grace. I don't know about you, but the latter sounds like the way to go to me. Trust me, in sharing those concepts with you, I know it might all sound a little bit off-putting. I think the prospect of bringing up topics like gluttony and sloth comes across as being even more abrasive with the way that our culture is nowadays. Our culture seems to revolve around this idea that we should do what feels good. Now we should even put that on a pedestal. And that's kind of exactly what gluttony and sloth entail, doing what feels good in the moment. Plus, in our society today, the most tasty, hyper-palatable, easy to overeat foods are also the ones that are the most convenient and affordable. So it's no wonder that practicing good eating and exercise habits seems to be so difficult for so many people in this day and age. But that's the thing about sanctifying grace. It doesn't happen automatically. It happens through intentional action. God does give us grace, like faith, but it's up to us to choose to act in cooperation with that grace to grow in sanctifying grace. It does take effort. You can see that even with the most obvious ways of growing in sanctifying grace. I'm talking about going to Mass every weekend to receive the Eucharist, going out of your way to receive the sacrament of confession, having a regular structured prayer routine, and showing the people around you acts of charity. Those are all actions that take some effort and energy, if only a little. The same is true of eating healthy and exercising. So why does it matter that we make a point of exercising and eating healthy to uphold the health and strength of our physical bodies, despite them rejoining our souls in a perfected state in heaven during Christ's second coming? Because doing so is a means of avoiding gluttony and sloth, and instead growing in sanctifying grace to thereby become more holy and get closer to God. And there you have it. At this point, I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts and feedback on this video? Let me know in the comments. I want to say a big thank you for watching this video and being here. And by the grace of God, hope that it might have helped you out a little bit. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.